Welcome back, everyone. This is video 3, where we have two parts. We created part 1 in video 1 and part 2 in video 2. This is part 3, where we combine the two in an assembly. So my name's Professor Dan, and we're just going through the ITLL assembly workshop together. So sorry about the screen quality. It's hopefully enough to get you going, though. All right, so back to it. Let me just make sure we share the correct screen here. So we're going to share my OnShape screen. There we go. All right, so where we left off is we had a green part with some nice little fillets and smoothness to it, and we have our yellow part where we have our two lobes and a hole cut in the middle. And I'm just going to hide sketch 2 and hide sketch 1 just so we can see our part a little better. There we go. So there's part 1. It's yellow. Let's just go like that. Oh yeah. And then we go to green. There we go. So let's do our assembly. We click on assembly, and there's nothing in there. So what do we have to do? We have to insert items into an assembly. So what does that mean? Well, we have our origin right there. So I'm going to zoom in and try to get our origin somewhere in the middle there. I'm going to hit insert, and our two parts that are open are nice and easy to grab. So I click yellow, and depending on how fast your computer is, it fires right up. So there's our yellow part. Then we have our green part, and it comes in yellow, but once I click, it'll go green. Hey, look at that. So now we have both parts inside our assembly, and see how they both kind of float around? The first thing I want to do is fix one of them. So I'll right-click on this part right here. That's our yellow part. I'm going to click fix. And now I can't move that around. This green part, though, I can move all around. So yeah, there we go. All right, so now we got to put the green part on the yellow part. So how do we do that? Well, what we do is we use these things called mates. And so we have a bunch of mates up here, and you can read about all the mates. I think the OnShape tools are better than me. But the one that we want is the Revolute mate. Basically, it's similar, I think, to the coincident mate in SolidWorks, but it's like you can align two holes and you can still revolve around them. So let's click on that and see what happens. Well, it says we have an error. We have to figure out what our mate connectors are. All right, so going through the workshop, it says click on this one here. So that's that one. And then click on this one here. So I'll do that. There we go, mate connector of part 1. Maybe I didn't click hard enough. Click. There we go. And so now it aligns those faces and looks pretty good, except for the fact that we want the other side of the face to be mated. So I click on this flip primary axis. Boom. We are good. All right. So our parts are joined. And so this is one of those things where it works in CAD, but it might not work in real life. Let's see why. Well, when I grab it, see how this part in yellow, there's a part right here that we're going to have to fill it. The other thing that we can kind of think about here is if we look at the front, there's no room in between. So these parts are probably going to have some friction there. So it all depends on that tolerancing stuff we talked about in video 1. So let's see if you can fix both of these. So first, yeah, we are, oops, Revolute 2. I don't think I want Revolute 2. I'm going to exit out of that. And so we have our Revolute 1, and yep, we can still grab it, twist it all around. There we go. All right. So how do we fix those two things? Well, first things first, let's go to our yellow part. So that's the thing. When we go through this, when we make assemblies, we can actually learn about how we change parts. And so that's one of the things that I think OnShape and SolidWorks both do pretty well, is enable you to, yeah, assemble stuff together, and then you can go and change your part a little bit. So before we do that, let's see where else there might be some interference issues. So one way to do that is you click on this little camera and render options, and you can go shaded with hidden edges. And so if we look on the right side here, click right, we can see that the other thing is we might be rubbing along the top and bottom. So we might want to take some material out so that when we align our parts, we're not totally rubbing against the interior. That would probably cause a little bit of wear. All right, so let's go in and let's look at our yellow part first. So we click on yellow, and we said we want to fillet this area right here. We want to fillet that area right there, kind of similar to what we did with that green part. So let's do it. So we take our fillet tool, that's up here. So fillet. And then 0.2 inches looked pretty good. So we're going to fillet that, fillet that. Cool. All right, good. Now, the other thing we wanted to do was also we wanted to make sure that we weren't rubbing on the two faces. So this face and this face, we wanted to have a little more room, right? So we can use this command right here. It's called the thicken command right there. And it's called thicken, but we can actually remove, and we can take some material away. So there we go. Let's take a 1/4 inch away. Now that's a lot. So let's check how that would look with our assembly here. Oh, hold on. Gotta click OK. And our assembly is probably going to break. There we go. Let's go back to our camera and render options and just go shaded. And yeah, that's a lot of room. So a little too much room right there. So let's go back and edit our thicken to be about 0.05. 0.05. There we go. Click check. Check our assembly. Give it a little wiggle, 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 wiggle. There we go. All right. Yeah, so that gives us a little room there. But when we check our right side, we go back to our shaded with hidden edges. Yeah, we can see that we're really kind of rubbing. And although rubbing is racing, rubbing's going to cause wear too. Yeah, I guess answer in the comments if you know what movie that is. Give a hint. Tom Cruise is in it. There we go. Back to yellow. So we want to change this, and we want to use that thicken command to make that a little smaller. So let's try and see if it works. So we click thicken, we thicken that part, thicken that part, we thicken that part. Oops, it's making it bigger. So we go 0.05 first, and then we want to remove. So we hit check. And although it did what we asked it to, it didn't necessarily do what we wanted to, because we have this little area right here that doesn't look all that great. So what did we do? We filleted first, and then we thickened. And so there's a little saying that I heard. I don't know who said it, but somebody who does a lot more CAD than I do, that said, usually you want to fillet last. And I think this is why. We filleted first, and then we thickened, and then our fillet kind of got messed up. So what do? We just grab our fillet, bring it down to the bottom. Doesn't necessarily like it, because some of the areas were changed. So we'll just refillet that, like so. There we go. So we thickened first, then we filleted, and then we hit OK. Cool. And then our part, I think, is looking pretty good. So let's go back to our assembly, give it a check. Look at that. So we have a little room between our two, between our surface and the bottom edge here. And when we go around, we have a little room between our two parts. Excellent. But if we look at the right side, we're hitting up top. So we gotta pretty much do the same thing with our green part. So go to our green part. There we go. And so, yeah, try the same task, or we could move the fillet down. I think it's easier just to say thicken 0.5, enter. And then we click on what we want to thicken. Oh, it's making it thicker, so we got to make sure we're removing. There we go. And it removes that. There we go. Now we have to move that fillet down. Fillet. Click on that. Double click on the fillet. It's red. Doesn't like it. Yeah, there you go. Cool. All right, so that part's looking pretty good. Oh, except for sketch 3. So sketch 3, we just made this whole sketch just to make a point. But yeah, let's see if we can fix this thing up. And so we have a lot of different issues with our sketch 3. Let's see if I can click on all of these things. Click, 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 click. So all of these things got changed, and OnShape doesn't like that. So now I hit Shift and then left click on all of them, and now I'm going to right click and say delete 6 sketch entities. They're all gone. And then we got to delete just this last one. Delete. Cool. All right, so we still have our point, which was the point of that. And you know, in the workshop, whoever built the workshop said we still want to have this circle. So what I'm going to do is put on construction, just give us a full circle again. Don't think we need to do that, but heck, why not? But see, sketch 3 is fine. It's a circle, not much else. Good to go. And we don't really use that. Cool. So we have thickened, we have filleted, and now we just have to go check it. So go back over to our assembly. Look at that. We have a little space. We have a little space. And then we ended up in the middle. But I wonder if that, yeah, so we can kind of slide around, because if you look, we actually have issues with our Revolute mate, since we're not actually putting them right on each other anymore, putting the faces right on each other anymore. You're gonna have to think about that. And so one of the nice things is we can make mate connectors in each individual part, and then we'll select those, and that will help us align. So I'm gonna put that back on shaded. But yeah, our mates are broken, so we gotta go fix those. So we'll go back to yellow. And so we wanna have a mate connector right down the middle. And so we wanna mate this thing right down the middle. We don't wanna put if these two materials are metal and plastic, or metal and metal, or plastic and plastic, we don't wanna push them up against each other, because that's gonna cause wear. So we wanna mate them right down the middle. How do we do that? We go to this little thing. So here's my mouse over here on the right. This thing called a mate connector. So we click on that, and a mate connector is what we're actually going to use to mate. And right now it says on entity, which means if I clicked right here, the center of that circle, it would put it right on the entity. There you go, face of thicken 1. But I want it between entities. I want it between this face and the other face. I want it halfway in between. So, oh, no. I'm just going to get out of that. Try it again. Mate connector. I'm going to go between entities. My origin entity. There we go. Right there. Face of thicken 1, and then my other between entity. Origin entity, between entity is the other face. So my origin entity, I could click on it, and it was this little the center of that circle right there. And I wanted it between the other face, so I was able to click on that. I was actually trying to click on the circle, but it didn't work. But I click on the face, and it puts it right between. Look at that, right in the middle. Cool. There's our mate connector, and now let's do the same thing on our green. So our green, we're going to want to make a mate connector. That's kind of like right in the middle here, right in the middle of this lobe thing. So let's go front. Oh, look at that. We're going to want to make connector right through the hole, right in the middle there. So let's see if it works. So we click here, go mate connector. I want to go between entities, my origin entity. There we go, the center of that circle. And then the other side, just this face. And we look, oh, there it is. So nice to see. Click check. Good to go. All right, now how do we use these things? Well, we got to go back to our assembly. So our assembly is where we want to put the two together, and we're going to see that our Revolute feature is busted. You see these things? They're not quite aligned. So let's go into that. Oh, it says these two things aren't there anymore. So we're going to delete those. and it says we can mate the connector. So if we click on, so here's my arrow. If I click on this little down arrow, I can see the mate connectors for both parts. There we go. So what I want to do is click on the mate connector for part 1, mate connector for part 2. Oh, you see that? See how it moved right down? Oh, well, it's already down there. Okay. So I click on those 2 mate connectors, and now they're aligned right in the middle there. No longer broken. I click check. There we go. So now we should be back in business. I should be able to, yeah, there we go. A little slow on my computer. It's doing a lot. So there we go. I'm going back and forth. But you see right here, this is another thing where CAD says it keeps going, but whoop, that would be impossible to do. So what we want to do is potentially put limits on our ability to rotate. How do we do that? Well, let's click into Revolute 1. We can actually set some limits here. So yeah, unlike Master P, we want to have limits. Again, if you get my joke, it's pretty funny. All right, so we're going to set that to minus 30 degrees and 10 degrees and see how that works. So now when we try to rotate it, come on, little buddy. It only rotates a certain amount in one direction. It only rotates a certain amount in the other direction. So yeah, we can go minus 30 in that direction, and we only go to 10 this direction. And so if we want to play with that a little more, say I want to go to 30, hit enter, can pull it down, yeah, pull it down a little more. There we go. Click check. And that is basically it. Oh, I guess one last thing we can do is we can right click on a mate connector and say hide all mate connectors. Yeah, just because once you made them, you don't really need to see that anymore. All right, with that, we are done. That is our assembly. So what did we learn? We learned how to, first of all, make our yellow part. Then we learned how to make our green part. Then we learned how to assemble them. And then, as is common in this class, we learned how to make our yellow and our green part better. And we learned how to mate them all together. And that's it. So that ends the assembly part of the workshop. Our next workshop will be how to make drawings. So you're going to want to make drawings because with your parts and assemblies, you're going to want to have the ability to send that off to a machine shop, send that off to some other place to get created. And so you're going to want to start practicing making engineering drawings. But this is enough for this video. So I will bid you adieu. We'll see you in the next one. All right, this is Professor Dan. Have a great day. Bye-bye.